me some of the new releases that I saw for the month of December. And there were over 23 new movies and shows that I saw for the month of December. And I will be ranking them from the best of the best to maybe not the best, right? The worst. So we will be breaking that down here for you all. So if you can, do your favor, hit that thumbs up, share, and more importantly, share what new movies, what new shows that you see for the month of December. And let me know how you would rank them from worst to best. So with that being said, let's kick off my list here. Starting things off with we have Senior, which was on Netflix, guys. This was a Netflix movie or documentary, I should say, brought to us by Robert Downey Jr. himself. You all might know him for various different projects. One in particular in the last decade was obviously Iron Man. And I didn't know Robert came from a family full of filmmakers. And, you know, they talked about in this doc, him highlighting his father, going over his career, Robert Downey Sr., who was, I didn't know he was a director himself. Some pretty cool, like, experimental films that I haven't seen that I'm going to probably look up after watching this doc. But this was nice, man. This was a nice, sweet, tier documentary highlighting Junior and his films that he made and how influential he was, that decades that he was making movies, which was in the 60s and 70s, and it kind of goes over their relationship between the father and son. And for those that are Robert Downey Jr. fans, it doesn't really highlight his life that much because it's obviously highlighting his father. But I thought it was a nice, sincere, sweet doc highlighting his father's accomplishments and their relationship. And I don't want to give too much away because it is based on, you know, true life. But it was sad, man, how things ended on an emotional level, but it was also a celebration of Robert Downey Sr.'s life. So I'm going to put Senior at a B, man. It was a pretty good, 90-minute doc. It was easy to watch. It was easy to follow, and a lot of good footage, again, dating back to the 60s and 70s for his films that he made. And again, man, I'm going to definitely explore his filmography because he seemed to be a very, like I said, a very experimental director. So that's going to go at a B for me. So definitely shout out to that. And that's available on Netflix. One is She Said. And this one here, I'm going to put this at a B. Instant film. If you all do not know, this is kind of the highlighting, I believe it was the New York Times. It was two reporters that really changed this generation in regards to the whole kind of Me Too movement. And these two reporters trying to obviously bring to light the sexual assault allegations that were found to be guilty from producer Harvey Weinstein. And it was a good movie, man. It was some things that I really, it felt like a doc, actually, to me, the way it was kind of shot. But performances by our two leads were great. Too much away for those that haven't seen it, but there is an actress that is in the film that was a huge part of the movement, the Me Too movement. And shout out to her, man, for being a part of the actual film, because I know that had to be tough to kind of relive those moments. But again, the film, it took a while for me to kind of get into it because it felt like I was watching a doc. The way it was shot, it didn't feel like a movie. It felt like more of like a documentary. But overall, man, great performances and some powerful stuff going on. Some really great moments between the actors. It was a pretty good watch. So She Said, which is, I believe, being nominated for a couple of different Oscars when it comes to that time of the year, from performance-wise, things of that nature. So I'm going to give that a B for me. But moving on to a TV show that I was actually looking forward to, and that is Kendrick, which, if you all do not know, is based on a novel that came out in the 70s, which I've heard nothing but fantastic things about. And I was looking forward to this series, y'all. Unfortunately for me, it did not stick the landing for most of the series. Show y'all where I'm putting it, man. This was a D for me, y'all. It was a show that had a lot of promise. The whole premise of the show is the lead that you all can see on the poster there, Dana, someone who's in her mid-20s. She's moving out on her own in LA and trying to become a writer in Hollywood. And her first couple of nights are a little bit awkward, a little bit weird. She has the ability to time travel to the late, 1800s, during the slave period. So while you're watching the series, you're thinking to yourself, how is she able to time travel? What is going on here? And when she moves to LA, she comes across this gentleman by the name of Kevin, and he gets tied into the mix. And listen, man, it's a cool idea. Our premise, again, I know it's based on a novel, and everyone I know that read the novel says fantastic, and it's a revolutionary type of book. And Octavia E. Butler, again, during the 70s, a Black woman writing sci-fi is unheard of. So definitely comes from a rich source material. But man, this show was just dull and boring. And if I'm being honest, the acting, besides Dana and her mom and her auntie, a lot of the actors to me were just terrible. And particularly Kevin, the one of the lead guys, who I just thought was, on a personal level, his voice, this might sound stupid, but his voice was just so irritating to me. Every time he opened his mouth, I just wanted to turn the TV off. But I thought his acting was terrible. When we go back to the times of the slavery, the whole family that we're following, they gave them more like backstory and gave them more story than the main characters, which was baffling to me. So listen, man, I did a short on it, like a short review, and I saw some people in the comments, they really enjoyed it. And I'm glad they enjoyed it, but I certainly didn't. That's why Kendrick is getting the D for me. And the way things end is so crazy because it opens it up to a season 2, which I would not be watching at all because I just wasn't a fan of it. But the thing that really kind of irritated me about this show was, and I'm not going to spoil it, but the whole thing that kept me interested in this show was like finding out why she's able to time travel, and they don't even answer that question. So not a fan of that show, but shout out to those that enjoyed it. I did not enjoy it. But moving on to our next movie here, another documentary. I tried to see as many docs as possible for this year's voting season, and I caught some good ones. And the next one here, I'm going to go ahead and put this up. The A for me. This is a documentary by the name of Bad Acts, which is pretty much a story following an Asian American family in this really small town. The name of the town is called Bad Acts. This Asian American family has been there. They their family, they raise their kids there, and they have this restaurant there. And we're following this family during the real time of half 2019, and then we follow them into 2020. So as you would imagine, obviously the pandemic, racial injustices, and they showcase the George Floyd situation, and we're seeing how this tight community who was supporting these Asian American family, and once they kind of share their political opinions about certain things, we see the town start to kind of change their tone and start to not support this restaurant. So it was a really good watch, man. I really, by the end of it, enjoyed the family dynamic, enjoyed the whole idea of like where you come from doesn't mean where you come from doesn't necessarily shape you as a person, and it just shows you people's true colors when it in this political times that we live in, how people can just switch on you and turn on you in a heartbeat. It was just kind of crazy to see, but I really enjoyed this doc, man. It was powerful, man. It was emotional once you get to certain elements of it, and it was also very inspiring. So one of my favorites. Again, I don't watch too many docs, but this was definitely high on the list for me. Bad Acts, which I highly recommend you all give a watch. A Netflix original, and I think it actually came out yesterday, and that is the new Noah Baumbach, White Noise, starring Adam Driver, Greta Gerwig, and Don Cheadle, and a lot of other actors that popped up in the film. This one for me, man, I'm just gonna go ahead and just put this where I thought it ended for me, which was a C. This was an interesting film, y'all. This is I like Noah Baumbach. A lot of you all might know him for a lot of different projects, but most recently he did Marriage Story in 2019, which I thought was a great film. But this is kind of following this weird family. Adam Driver is a professor. Greta Gerwig is just like a stay-at-home mom, and they have like he has his kids, she has her kids, and they come together kind of like a Brady Bunch situation. But nonetheless, there's this chemical spill that takes place, and it kind of sets this chain of events for this family to kind of survive this kind of apocalyptic type of situation, which is only the first 20 minutes of the film. The rest of the film becomes like this domestic relationship between a husband and wife and some potential affairs. But I gotta say, it was a weird viewing for me. I know some people love it. I'm not one of those people. I appreciate the acting. It felt like a screen, it felt like I was watching a play by the way they were talking. They were not like normal conversations. It was very just kind of, it is based on a novel. So I know Noah Baumbach was adapting something, but I don't know. This didn't really fit this wasn't my cup of tea. I did like the film as it went on, as we were diving a little bit deeper into the relationships of the two leads. And it was a really fascinating situation by the end of the film, but I wasn't the fan of most of the film. But again, I praise the performances and kind of, it's a little bit of a horror tinge in it, especially when the chemical spill happens. But wasn't my cup of tea, y'all. Let me know if you all have seen White Noise, if you've heard of it, if you watched it on Netflix recently, and share your thoughts on the film in the comments below. And another film that I just recently saw, which comes out a couple weeks, which is A Man Called Otto, starring the one and only Tom Hanks. Now, last night, man, I'm going to do a short review to give you all my full thoughts, but right now it's a C for me. Definitely applaud Tom Hanks' performance and his relationship with his neighbor that I really enjoyed. It's a really sweet story. A man who unfortunately lost his wife really shaped his life in a positive way. He was a individual that saw life in black and white, but she added a lot of color to his life. But unfortunately, when she passed, he kind of becomes this kind of old, bitter, angry old man. But he comes across this new neighbor and he kind of opens his heart up. And it's just a really sweet story, man. My negatives, which I'll explain in my review when I put that out probably next week, is more so the flashback sequences didn't work for me. And it's a little hallmarky as far as the way the film's kind of presented, especially in the second half. It becomes just a little bit too on the nose for me. But nonetheless, man, this is a sweet film with a lot of heart to it. But like I said, I'm gonna get a little review set out for you guys coming up next week. But that was my thoughts on A Man Called Otto, coming out in just a few weeks. This is a good one, y'all. This was one of my favorite animated films this year, which went by the name of Hollow 10 and a half was the name of it, man. This was, let me go ahead and just put this where it belongs, man, which is in the A tier for me, y'all. This was such a good movie, man. This is pretty much a film. It's animated, like I mentioned, and it follows this 10-year-old boy who during, was it 1969, he lives in Houston. For those that are familiar with the space race between America and Russia and all the different countries trying to land on the moon first, it shows us this 10-year-old kid who gets recruited to go to the moon before, Neil Armstrong and Apollo mission went down. And it's just such a great film, y'all. Like, it's, first off, the animation is gorgeous, but it's a nostalgia trip, man. First off, it takes place in the 60s, which I wasn't born in the 60s, but it just kind of showed that time of life where things were just simpler. Kids can go outside and play, get home before the lights come on the streets. It was just a really cool throwback journey to not only to the moon, but a coming of age story, and just so much goodness going on with this film, man. This is on Netflix, by the way, guys. It came out earlier this year, I believe in April. Get a chance to see it during April, hence why I saw it in the month of December. But definitely recommend you all give this a watch, man. This was hilarious, has some really surprising good, like, emotional heartbeat to it as well, and just a beautiful animated film that I highly, highly, highly recommend for you all to check out. 10, A Space Age Childhood is an A tier for me, man. Really, really enjoyed that. Funny Pages is the next on my list, and I put this in the D tier, man. This is an A24 film that I saw literally last night. I literally watched it last night, and it was one that I wanted to watch from the end of the year. And it's a film about a teenage cartoonist who is it's a coming of age story. Artist gets some inspiration, and I get the sentiment of the film, but I'll be honest with y'all, it just wasn't my cup of tea. It's a satire comedy, coming of age drama, and it just very similar to Funny Pages. If you all ever read Funny Pages in newspapers or whatnot, some of that comedy just doesn't work for me. It starts off really weird between our main character and his uncle. I thought that opening scene was very awkward. And there's this weird relationships between this 13, 14-year-old kids and other grown men. And I don't know, man, it was just weird to me. It had some moments that I enjoyed. It was funny at times, but overall, it just wasn't for me, man. So Funny Pages is the name of the film, and it's A24. Came out early this year. I'm pretty sure it's available to watch on streaming platforms or rent. I wouldn't recommend it. That's why it's a D tier to me. But shout out to those that enjoyed it. But it just was not my cup of tea, to say the least. So moving on to the next one here, which is Menu, y'all. And I'm gonna put the Menu at a B for me. It didn't hit as high on my list as far as honorable mentions of this year or top 10s, but I can appreciate what it was going for. Really great direction from one of the directors that works on one of my favorite shows with Succession. Really interesting satire about the food industry and servicing people, and just kind of this relationship between people that are servers and people that get served. And I appreciate all those sentiments and the metaphors and the symbolism of all that stuff. And some really great performances. Anna Taylor-Joy and Ralph Fiennes were great. Nicholas Hoult, the whole cast was fantastic. But to me, it just played better as a satire comedy than it did. Like, it falls under the horror genre, which I can see why it falls under that, because it does get a little bit more. The situation that's at hand, you have this group of people going to the secluded island to experience this wine and dine restaurant, this high-end restaurant, and just imagine the people that are serving you are trying to trap you there, and you can only imagine what happens from there. So I can understand the horror elements, but it just didn't really play out that way for me. But overall, there's more pros than cons, but it didn't blow me away like it did for some people. Like, I know some people, this is like their favorite film of the year, which Like I said, I can see that, but it just wasn't that high on my list. But the menu will be available for those that missed out on seeing it in theaters. I think it's coming to HBO Max next month. So check it out, man. And when you do, let me know what you all thought of the menu. You can check out I did a short review on it here on my YouTube channel. But moving on to the next one, man. This is another one that I saw last night, and this is really high on my list, and that's Triangle of Sadness, y'all. Man, this film is something else. It's a long movie. I'm not gonna lie. I watched it like at 2:30 in the morning. I finished it like at 2:30 last night. It's about an hour and four. It's 147 minutes, which is what, almost 2.5 hours. But the trip, man. This is pretty much a story of this group of rich people going on this luxury yacht, and there's different people in the boat, from influencers, models, billionaires, people that have their own company. And let's just say this this trip is not as smooth sailing as you would hope it to be with this kind of high end vacation type of experience cruise. This is a great film, man. It's some great performances. I can't think of the actress name, but the lead actress who plays Yaya recently passed away in August. Man, and she was great in the film. The main guy that we follow in the film was fantastic, and it's a really interesting, another kind of film almost similar to The Menu, where it shows you kind of the different class levels and how people treat people, and how you got to, the customer's not always right. And man, this film has this really wild kind of switch in tone halfway through the film, where it was pretty disgusting. I'm not gonna lie, where some things really get wonky and wild. But I loved the third act of the film, which kind of goes to a whole nother level of the film, where things kind of shape out. And there's a character by the name of Abigail. Man, she stole the movie for me, man. She literally is a character that literally pops up in the third act and just steals the whole movie. But I highly recommend this film, man. Triangle of Sadness. Really recommend you all give this a watch, man. I'm gonna do like a short review on it and put it out sometime next week. But definitely recommend this film if you all see something pretty crazy and pretty wild. Again, make sure you have time to watch, because it gets a long 2.5 hour watch, but I highly recommend it. That is Triangle of Sadness, y'all. Whew, what an interesting film. But what's next on our list? Babylon. Y'all know how I feel about Babylon, man. This was one of my favorite films this year. It made my top 10s list, so you can check out my reviews on that. But it's an awesome film. It's not getting a lot of good reviews, and it didn't do that well at the box office, but I loved it. EO. How do I describe EO? It's a film about a donkey who gets lost and goes on this kind of crazy trippy ride, and comes across people that are suffering through different life experiences, pain, tragedies, and different stuff of that nature. It's a very philosophical, a lot of different undertones. But I think the thing that stood out to me with EO was it's one of the best looking films I've seen all year. Very gorgeous to look at, very trippy, like I said, very trippy film. But that was a B tier for me. Need I say more? S class, one of the best movies I've seen this year. Again, you can check out my top 10 list to see where it landed. But man, Ram and Beam, that friendship, frenemies, great love story, the most crazy, over the top action film I've seen since I don't know, The Raid or something. Man, I love the action, but I love the heart that the film has, and just the culture, the dance sequences, the shoulder, my man Ram on Beam's shoulder in that third act is just the most action-packed scene of the year. I love this movie. I love it so much. RRR is an S tier for me, y'all. And again, you can check out my review on RRR. And like I said, I will be going on a deep dive with SS Rajamouli, the director of this film. I'm going to watch any film that I can find online. I'm going to give it a watch come next year, because I'm just a huge fan. And also, if y'all don't know, there will be a sequel to RRR. Can't wait for that. Moving on to another film here. Banshees of Inisherin, man. This is the Colin Farrell film that's getting him a lot of buzz for Best Leading Actor. Condon, and just an incredible cast, man. This film was really good. I know it's a slow burn, which I can go for a slow burn every now and then. But this is a film about two friends that one of the friends no longer wants to be friends anymore. And we're watching this story, this relationship kind of break down while there's a war going on. And man, when I tell y'all, between these two performances and direction and the messaging of this film was one of my favorites, man. It made my honorable mentions. I didn't make my top 10 quite, but I still respect it and really enjoyed it. And it's available on HBO Max for those that maybe want to give it a shot. Again, it's not for everyone because it is a slow burn and there's some pretty crazy stuff that happens in the film, but it's something that I really enjoyed. The Banshees of Inisherin, like I said, is available on HBO Max, and definitely shout out to Jenny, the donkey, another donkey, the year of the donkey this year, man. But shout out to Jenny, man, really good film. In the Leave, one of my favorites this year as well, made my top 10 actually. Was a really good film, a story romance mixed in with a little bit of thriller situation going on. We basically have a detective who is looking into the murder of a man dies on a mountaintop, and he investigates. As they say, when someone dies and they're married or they have a relationship, the first person you interrogate is their spouse, which our detective in this film does. And let's just say he befriends this spouse and something becomes of that relationship. So this is brought to us by Park Chan-wook. Directed some incredible films in his filmography: Old Boy, Handmaiden. I'm trying to think of some other films that he did that I saw of his. There's a couple other ones that he's did. He's a fantastic director, and this is another fantastic film under his resume. If you are able to rent it or to stream it throughout various streaming services, I highly recommend this film, man. This was a great psychological thriller romance that just has so many different tones that it plays with. It's a comedy at one point. It's, like I said, it's a romance at one point. It's a thriller. It's a suspenseful film. It has everything, man. And it's one of my favorites of this year. And that is Decision to Leave. Definitely recommend you all give it a watch. Teal. Listen, it's self-explanatory. If you all know about Emmett Till, one of the most tragic stories you'll ever hear, the whole civil rights movement, it's so monumental to history in general, and the film definitely highlights that what went down in the 1950s, and the performance that we have here by our lead actresses, and you all definitely definitely expect to see her name when it comes to Oscar season, because she gave such Daniela, I think it's Daniela Deadweiler, if I'm not mistaken, but she was so great in this film, man. Like, I felt every single emotion. I felt every single thing that she gave us in this performance. And I hope, and I'm pretty confident that she's going to get a nomination, but great performance and a really good movie. It had developments of certain elements weren't as fleshed out as I would have liked it had been, but overall, man, great performances across the board, especially from our lead actor and also the young man that played Emmett Till. He wasn't in it a lot, but when he was in the film, you felt his presence. So it's not an easy watch, as you would imagine. Don't shy away from showing all the brutal moments, and literally a moment of when the casket was open casket. It was hard to watch, man, but it's a really good film, man, and it's that's why Teal was a B tier for me. Avatar, go ahead and put that in A tier. Got a full review, did a spoiler review with my homie Griffin from Film Speak, so you all can check that out to know why it's an A class. But I'm a big fan of Avatar. It made one of my top 10 movies of the year. Women Talking, getting a lot of, well, the Oscar nominations haven't come out yet, but I assume it's going to get a lot of recognition from screenplay and direction and performances. It was okay to me. It was, as the film titled, it's called Women Talking, and there was a lot of talking. And listen, it wasn't necessarily like bad dialogue or bad performances. It was great direction. It was a great script. It moved the needle for me like it did for a lot of people. It's not even, I don't even think it's available yet. I believe it's going to be available on Netflix come the middle of next month. But they did have a limited theatrical run in some limited theaters. But it's a group of women on an isolated religious colony that's struggling through their faith, and there's some situation going on with men taking advantage of the women there, and they're pretty much like sexual assaulting the women, and it's pretty much the women in this film are deciding if they want to stay or if they want to leave, and what comes with that if they make that decision. So this, I understand I sympathize with the women. I sympathize with that people that go through this situation, especially in these like small colonies that are so religious based, and they, brainwash you into thinking if you do something wrong, you're gonna go to hell. I mean, it has all those undertones in there, but it was just, like I said, it felt like I mentioned earlier, feeling like a screen, like watching a play. And I know this was adapted off of something. It felt like that. And I'm not the biggest fan of like when things are just so like, feels like I'm watching a play, but it's coming out in a couple weeks, man. Definitely another slow burn, but can't deny the great performances and the great direction. Particularly Rooney Mara was great, Claire Floyd was great, and I'm a Jesse Buckley, one of my favorite actors. So Women Talking, like I said, it got a C for me, but definitely, give it a watch if you guys like those type of movies. But to me, it just didn't really move the needle for me like that. But Glass Onion, again, another review that I have on the channel. I personally prefer the first Knives Out over this new one. Just feel like the mystery was a little bit better. Film goes on, and you kind of understand what the film's going for. It kind of leveled out for me. But overall, man, it's a fun movie. Has a lot of great fun performances, beautiful cinematography, and I'm really excited to see what Rian Johnson does next. Again, just check out my full review, but it was a B tier for me personally. But again, like I said, I prefer the first one over the second one. I'm still excited to see what Rian Johnson has in store for the third one, and can't wait to see what cast he gets together for this third one. But moving on to another doc that I saw earlier this year, That Breeze. This is another, again, I'm not a big documentary fan. Not for any particular reason. I just don't seek them out as often as I do, feature length films. But this was a good one, man. This is a film about pretty much are trying to stop this extinction of these birds in their tree that are being distinct. I think they went by the name of black kites, if I'm not mistaken. And it's the reason they want to keep these birds alive is because it's huge to the ecosystem out there, and it's just showing you their day in life, observing these birds, and also giving you a little bit of insight on their family situation and their dynamics and how they navigate and how much money they put in this and time and effort. And it seems like it's getting ignored. Definitely All That Breathes is one of my favorites this year. Here, that's Elvis. Just quick, brief thoughts on this. I didn't love Elvis. I definitely enjoyed the performance by Austin Butler, and I can understand why he's getting all the attention in which he deserves, because he was the saving grace for me in this film. Because everyone else, even my man Tom Hanks, everyone in this film was just like in another movie to me. But Austin Butler was great. This film was just not as high on my list as it was for everyone else. But I can appreciate people that loved it, especially those that are fans of Elvis. And wrapping things up with another national film here, Holy Spider, which I'm going to go ahead and put at my B tier. This is about a film who is a journalist looking into investigating these serial killers. This serial killer is killing a bunch of sex workers. The killer thinks that what he's doing is good because he's cleansing the earth of all these unholy people because they're sex workers. But it was a good movie, man. It kind of shows you, again, different religions, different perspectives, different point of views, different lifestyles, dark at times too. Like the film didn't shy away from the brutal murders of the serial killer. And listen, this is not like a mystery. Like the film shows you, and within the first 5 minutes who the killer is. So it's not like a mystery, like who's the killer. It's more so about like what makes a person do this, and why religion can be a dangerous thing for some people, because there's just some fanatics out there that just do things like kill people because they believe it's for the betterment of their religion. So it's definitely something that was really well written, really great acting, and some really like powerful moments in the film. So Holy Spider, I believe, is getting some international love for the Oscar season, but definitely a film that I really enjoyed. Last but not least, TV show wise, baby, White Lotus. If you all didn't know, I covered that all season and had a good time doing so. So you can check out my full review, but that's an S tier for me. It wrapped up in December. So that was the show that I watched last month. You have it, guys. That is the movies and shows I saw. And just to quickly wrap this up, we can get into the meat and potatoes, just to rank things. I'm going to go ahead and start with the S tier. I'm going to go RRR, Babylon, and The White Lotus. Then go into my A tier. I'll probably go here and here. Actually, I'll put this here. I'll probably rank my A tier, and then my B tier here. Glass Onion, EO. That's how my B tier would look like for my rankings. C tier, I would probably go White Noise, Auto. This is probably actually pretty set for me. And then my D tier is pretty much set as well. Actually, I would watch Funny Pages before I would watch Kindred again. So there you have it, all 23 movies and shows that I saw for the month of December and how I would rank them. Make sure to share your rankings in the comments, like, share, and comment, and I'll catch you guys on the next breakdowns.